Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. And welcome back, everybody. She is somebody that walks the journey with you when you're going through some challenging times. And those times I'm referring to are those situations that involve grief. All of us, some point in our lives, if not already, have experienced grief, and that can come in all different forms, certainly from the passing of a loved one, but it can also be the loss of something, be it a relationship, be it a job, whatever it might be. There's grief involved, and you got to get through that. Not usually that easy. It is much easier with her help. She formed the National Grief Support Center.com, and she's back with us. She is Julie Ehlers on the program. How are you?
Very good, and excited to be here today and to have Debbie Shear with us. Debbie Shear is a former client of mine who joined a grief workshop in my early days of working as a grief practitioner. And Debbie's here to share with us and talk about her grief journey and how she came to come to the workshop and how she has used the grief recovery method that I work with people through the program, how she's used the tools that she has been given through that to walk through grief that continues in her life, various different things from losing her mom to a divorce and so on, and losing her dad. Have touched her life, and she has learned a journey, and I'm sure is still learning, like all of us, how to do this, because it's different with every loss. Debbie, so welcome, Debbie.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Julie, in you telling us about Debbie initially, you just brought something very clear for me that, first of all, you've said this before, grief continues. It's not just, it's all gone and everything's great now. It continues. It could be the rest of your life, but it's how you deal with it. But just as impactful, you mentioned the loss of a loved one, loss of a relationship, all of that. I never, processed that until you said it, how all of these things can be floating out there, and we're dealing with all of them, assumably at the same time. Just, I guess, adding to the challenge. Debbie, can you walk us through your journey?
Yeah, wow. I would say that my mom passed in 2016, and that up until that point, well, that was the most profound loss that I had experienced. Yes, as a child, my grandparents passed away, but that was a different type of experience. Now, in 2013, I had also experienced a divorce, which I really didn't recognize as being this grief process until I started to work with Julie. I started to work with Julie because I was very much struggling a few years after my mom passed with what I perceived to be moving on, right? Society gives us this little box that we have to put our grief into, and that box fits on a specific timeline. And I was having a hard time functioning, really, because of the grief. So I have known Julie for a long time and knew, before even knowing that she did this type of work, that she was able to hold a very safe space for people in other areas. And so when I came to find out that she was doing this work, I was completely on board with signing up for your workshop. That might have been one of the earlier workshops.
It was.
Wow.
It was a pilot workshop, actually.
It was a pilot. And I have to tell you, I remember driving. I had about a 40-minute drive with traffic to get to the location. And I sobbed the entire way because I remember showing up saying, well, as the overachiever that I sometimes can be, I wanted to get ahead of the work and just cried in the car all the way here. So that's how it started.
My first thought here is, Julie, does it add up? What do I mean by that? So Debbie talked about a relationship ending in divorce. A few years later, barely 3, her mom passes away. Does it start stacking up in terms of, I call it emotional baggage, the stuff we carry. It's a backpack. You got it. Now I'll put another one back there. Got to put another one back there. Oh, look what I got to put that back there. Now I'm carrying it. Now it's, it's weighing me down. When it comes to grief, is that kind of how it goes?
Yes. And if we don't stop, pause, and pay attention to how we're feeling with all the grief and actually work with somebody, I truly feel like it piles up, and then we have to unravel it. And then we need to realize, like in Debbie's case, she realized she was coming regarding her mom, which she was struggling with. But she also had this big, big grief with the loss of the family unit, the partner, the whole thing. And so it could be a dual thing. And many times when I work with somebody who presents like, I want to come talk about the loss of my mom, there will also be other losses that they will work through at the same time. And it's the beginning sometimes of it. So you could be working through it parallel, or you could say, you know what, I really just want to focus on this. And then I'm going to focus on this other loss. But in the meantime, it's kind of all messy. And so you're pulling it apart all the time as you're working. Go ahead, Deb.
Just to add, because you were really able to help me understand this next point, I had a lot of anger about the divorce, and I had a lot of great sadness about the loss of my mom. And I didn't realize that, that anger, there was still a lot of sadness, right? That beneath the surface of anger. And you really helped me kind of peel back that layer and identify, no, it all stems from grief, right? How we present is different, but that grief is really the foundation.
Yes. Yes.
I've had this debate with friends, those around me. Anger is not anger. Anger is other emotions, and it presents as anger. But there is nothing that just is I'm mad, I'm angry. There's other things there. What do you think, Julie?
I agree. It's okay. So what is that anger about? And often when we're angry, we can start crying. And that's because the anger is not making us cry. It's the sadness. It's the hurt inside of, somebody was rude to me, somebody hurt my feelings, my mom's not here to hold me anymore, I can't hold her hand, I can't ask her for advice. And same thing with loss of an intimate partner, a spouse. You have this sadness because you no longer have that relationship, and that's very painful. It's a hurt.
Sure.
And then it's an anger, like, why did that person betray me on this level? There's lots of betrayal that can happen. I think we've all been betrayed. And when that happens, that's painful. It's such a hurt. And so we get angry, we get mad. It's a way that we can express the physicality often of, whether it's raising a voice or it's throwing a ball in anger outside so you don't break your stuff in your house, and pick up something that you can throw versus a glass, right? And just express. So I talk a lot about, too, with folks about moving a lot with their grief. Like, grief needs to move, whether it's through tears or whether it's our body. And we get out there and we actively move, whether it's walking, running, biking, anything physical is helpful.
What you're saying there, I've often heard it's all about energy, and the energy needs to go somewhere. So if it's connected to grief, then you might have anger. Let's say, by the way, I just want to sub note here, Debbie. I understand. I'm not you, but went through the same stuff, same timing. Mom too. So I got it. I got, and spot on about moving that energy because it gets into the cellular level as I understand it. And why do we cry? You cry because there's a release of chemicals. Now you're getting rid of that energy in a way, but even just moving your body, that's why they say, exercise feels great because it's got to go somewhere. So you need to expend it in some way. Debbie, tell us how did Julie walk the journey with you? Like, take us through some of those steps to help you understand what's going on and eventually feel better.
Oof. I think, like I said earlier, and I think this part is so important because there are a lot of people doing grief work, but it's finding someone that you feel safe with, right? There is such a vulnerability in this work. And so that was the first part of it, is Julie did such a great job creating, and I know the safe space is overused, I get that, but creating an environment where people, it was a very small group. I think there were 4 of us in the group. It was a really intimate, nice group, intentionally so. And then really just helping us gently guide us, because those small steps to the outside observer are monumental, right? And really physically exhausting and mentally exhausting. And so I think there was a lot of reading, there was a lot of journaling, there was just a lot of processing. And really for me, it was peeling back those layers. I know this might look this way, but let's uncover this to see what might be going on beneath the surface.
What for you, Debbie, what was the realization, the aha? Was there an aha moment that came to you?
There were a few. One, it's okay, right? Everything I'm feeling, because a lot of what I was feeling did not match the timeline that society told me I should be experiencing, right? Like the outside forces tell us, well, you have this much time, but you've been grieving now this way for 2 years. That doesn't seem right. So there was the aha moment of, it's such a personal, unique experience that what other people are telling you, it's great. You can hear it, but that's their own version. And that's not, you're not going to be able to fit that jacket on, and it won't fit you the way it should. So that was definitely an aha moment. And then the fact that I did need help, right? Like, grief, it will never go away. My grieving for my mother, that will always be there in and out of my daily existence. But to recognize when you do need a little more help. And I was definitely needing more help because it was impacting my daily functioning in a way I was not able to be as productive as I wanted to be.
And those are big signs. Those are big signs to a person. And I always say that if it is impacting your day-to-day function, then it's really important to reach out to somebody, because that will be helpful to get back a focus, because there's the grief fog, right?
Yeah.
And that grief fog takes place for quite some time for people. And then the thoughts, some people have continual thoughts about the loss of their person or their relationship, and how like this sucks, and just like really yucky self-talk. And it's to help shift, when you work with somebody, you're helping to shift your perspectives on things and learning about there's no timeline, because you are you. And that person, like Mom, was this huge person in Debbie's life, just like in most relationships. But to Debbie, she was just this extraordinary person. And Debbie needed to share that. She needed to talk about that in a space where people will hear her, give her her time to speak to that, and however much she wants to talk about it. There's a lot of judgment in the world that we live in, the culture that we're in, about everything. But grief is one of the things that people judge people on. Like, why are you still grieving like that? Why is she crying about her daughter dying. Um, Somebody actually said that to me. And this was in a casual conversation that turned into a bigger conversation, obviously. And it was about a mutual friend. And I said, she's crying because she's deeply hurt by the loss of her daughter. Can you even imagine? That shouldn't happen. So, yes, there
Mm.
is huge grief that goes on for more than a month, folks, and it goes on for more than a year. And we do learn how to manage it for ourselves. Everybody's answers to themselves on how to manage that is different. And I make recommendations based upon the individual person and what seems to work for the greater whole. It takes somebody being able to see that too in an individual and to see that, Debbie's different than the other person sitting in the room also. Each person in the room brought something different in the workshop. And you have to be able to moderate that, facilitate that. So Debbie's getting what she needs, the other people are getting what they need, and everybody gets to share how it's working for them or how it isn't.
Julie, you just identified something somebody shouldn't say to somebody else. And we've talked about that before. If you want to support somebody that is grieving, but you're not really sure what to say, coming from you, Debbie, what are some of the things that would be okay, or some of the things that maybe you heard that didn't really sit that well with you?
Yeah. I can tell you because I remember them and I still hear them, whether I'm talking about my dad or some other grief that I'm dealing with now. For my mom, she had lung cancer. And so the most common, comfortable thing for people to say is, well, she's out of pain. She's in a better place. I had people say, well, what's meant to be is, right? If it was meant to be, it was meant to be, which is a horribly insensitive thing to say. And I understand why people say it. They don't know what to say and they want to be kind and they want to be supportive. So those are things that we have heard, since the start of time when people grieve. I think for me, what was helpful is, and I try to do this to friends now who are grieving, when I've lost my mom and my father, people show up in droves in the beginning and you feel very contained and held up. And then months later, a year later, that really tends to disappear. And so for me, it was so beautiful and helpful when people would still show up and still check in and say, I know this was a significant anniversary, or I know, I just wanted to reach out. I know the lilacs are blooming and I wanted to say, I'm thinking about you and your mom. And that was supremely helpful for me and still continues to be.
Interesting. Just bringing up the memory, if somebody can connect it to you. Wow. I mean, as I was walking the other day and I saw irises blooming, right away I thought of my grandmother, who died when I was like 16. But it was a memory, and I think if my sister was next to me, I probably would say, hey, remember, grandma used to grow those and she loved them. And even before, when I said, I've been through a similar type journey, I preface it by saying, I'm not you. I'm not, totally different. But the time, what you said, it was me. Give or take a year. Mine was a little closer, but that I understand the grief feeling, especially with two totally different things. I don't understand how you felt or are feeling, but that's I wanted to share that empathy with you. Julie, other thoughts that we should keep in mind when we're grieving or connected to somebody who is?
Yes. And, Debbie brought up the being there for people. And that leads me to think about lots of ways to be there. Like when somebody's in acute grief, acute meaning they've just lost the parent, or they're just in this divorce, or they just lost their job. Showing up literally with a bag of groceries with just basic essentials nothing fancy, is like one of the greatest gifts that you can give somebody that's grieving because they don't have the energy to go to the store. They're not thinking straight.
Mm.
They need to have protein. So, things like cheese and crackers are easier to eat when you're grieving versus cooking a meal. So
Sure.
cheese, crackers, maybe a few pieces of fruit, some peanut butter. It's like the easy stuff being there for them.
Is it?
And
Can I
then,
jump in here just on that thought? Some people are just don't. They want help, but they don't want help, and sometimes
exactly.
they feel uncomfortable. In that situation, would it be, and non-perishable, would it be okay to leave it at their door
Yes.
and just send a text? Hey, left something at your door. Figure you might want a bite to eat. Thinking about you. Oop.
Yes.
Okay.
I recently had a friend of mine in Florida lose her husband, and all this happened very suddenly within 2 months. And then we got a notice about it. And I mean, I immediately, if I was there in Florida, I would have, we live in the same building there, and I would have gone there and given
Sure.
her a great big hug and brought her food and, you know, just different treats. But I would have said, I know this is a hard time, so I'm going to walk away now. I just want you to know I'm here for you.
Yeah, that's it. Because
Hmm.
maybe you're at a point where it's like, I've already cried, I've already talked to everybody, I don't want to talk to anybody more. But I
Exactly.
appreciate your act of goodwill, and
Yes.
reach out if you want to talk. I'm here. Call me anytime. Don't even give it a second thought. That's
Right.
just putting that out there.
So with this same friend, I texted her knowing she's not going to want a phone call. Let's just text and see how she's doing. She doesn't have to text back. I told her that you don't have to text back. I just want you to know that I just heard. And I am so deeply sorry for this loss, so deeply saddened by it. And, I didn't get to say goodbye to her husband. I didn't get to say, you know, I'm so sorry you're going through this part of his journey. Um, I didn't know it was going that way when we departed Florida. So, I mean, I thought that he was going to go through remissions and all these things, and he
Mm,
didn't. Um, and so it's knowing what to say. So I said to her, let me know if you're interested in phone calls or just texting.
yep.
She said nothing, but thank you so much for thinking of me. And so I knew this is it. And you can send a card, you can do these things. Cards are great for people to receive versus just a text. I mean, it's the old way of consoling, and
Yeah.
there's just something about it. It's
It's
special.
personal and nothing's personal
Yes,
anymore. Take a
right.
take a damn pen and write something.
That's
We
right.
don't do that. We just, and
Put
I
it in
get
the
it,
mail.
but
Right.
but that's why it would make a difference and stand out. We're out of time. I got to ask this question. I thought you said it a moment ago. Yes or no? Is it okay, Julie, to say to somebody, "Sorry for your loss"?
Yes.
Okay. I
Yes,
always
that is
wonder because
okay.
I never want to put it on me. I'm sorry for you, so I struggle with that. I don't want my feeling. How do I verbalize this? It's not about me. You know what
Right.
I'm saying? Like,
Right.
so that's why I kind of struggle with that and always wondered, even on, somebody puts a post on social media and you wonder, what to say. So I always wondered, a lot of people say sorry for your loss.
Right. I always add something on the social media thing.
For sure.
I add something
Yeah,
that's more personal.
I agree. Yep.
But if that's the time that you have, the only thing to say that you can think of, it's really okay. That's not going to be so offensive.
Yeah.
I've never felt offended by somebody saying that. Other people might.
Mhm.
You don't know, but it is okay to say that.
How do we find you if somebody's going through some challenges? Maybe we know somebody who's dealing with grief. How do we connect with you?
Call me directly at 720-480-3317. And you can also look me up and email me through the National Grief Support Center.com.
Julie, thank you. And Debbie, thank you for being here today and sharing everything.
Thank you.
Truly appreciate it. I mean, just, seeing it from the other side of somebody going through different types of grief as well. Very impactful. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Debbie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
And by the way, Debbie, love your hair.
Great.
I know what gel you're using, but I got to get that.
Oh, I'll send it to you. Thanks.
All right. Thank you both. We'll be right back.
Okay. Bye.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
Mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's just going to be okay.